Thank you and welcome back. We're going to have a vote session. Today is Wednesday, April 1st. Members, I'd like to let you all know that floor session will be starting at 3 p.m. instead of 2:30. So 3 p.m. instead of 2:30. Tell your neighbor if they're not, if they didn't hear that. Okay, so. Okay. All right. So now what you have before you is voting list number 19. With the exception of Senate Bill 471, I'd like to offer this as a consent calendar. Thank you. Are there any other objections to this being, are there any objections to this being a consent calendar with the removal of Senate Bill 471? No objections. Okay, so what we're going to do is call a roll call vote for a consent calendar with the exception of Senate Bill 471, which we will have a separate vote on. Okay? So everybody understand what you're voting on? All right. Please call the roll.
The vote for Senate Bill 38, Chair JPR Vehicle Laws Ignition Interlock System Program required participation will be considered the vote for the whole calendar. The Vice Chair. Except for 471. The Vice Chair votes aye. Delegate Valentine. Delegate Valentine votes aye. Delegate Embry is excused. Delegate Cardin. Delegate Cardin votes aye. Delegate Phillips is excused. Delegate Congolo. Delegate Congolo votes aye. Delegate Stinnett. Delegate Stinnett votes aye. Delegate Simmons. Yes. Delegate Simmons votes aye. Delegate Boucher is absent. Delegate McComas. Yes. Delegate McComas votes aye. Delegate Moreno is excused. Delegate Aricon. Yes. Delegate Aricon votes aye. Delegate Taylor. Yes. Delegate Taylor votes aye. Delegate Simpson. Yes. Delegate Simpson votes aye. Delegate Mangione. Delegate Mangione votes aye. Delegate Moon. Delegate Moon votes aye. Delegate Conaway. Delegate Conaway votes aye. Delegate Woods. Delegate Woods votes aye. Delegate Williams is excused. The consent calendar passes.
Yes, Delegate Aricon.
Chair, I just noticed that SB 465 doesn't have a cross file that we voted on. Yeah, that'd be great.
And sometimes they don't quite match up, but
okay.
We've heard the issue. Delegate Cardin.
Chair, I asked that exact same question when I saw this.
Yeah.
And apparently it is an exact replica of Delegate Embry's bill that we already passed out unanimously. And it's, for some reason, is not cross-filed.
Oh, weird. Do we know what the... Okay, House Bill 477. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we move on to our next matter? I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, to the carve-out. Yeah. All right. So now we're going to hold a vote. Well, now we're going to move on to Senate Bill 471. Is there a motion? Second. All right. It's been moved favorable for Senate Bill 471. Is there any discussion? Any thoughts, concerns? Leader Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And sorry, I actually didn't realize that the bill I was just referring to is actually swinging right back around and got pulled from the consent calendar. And I don't actually know what the basis of them pulling it is, but I am just flagging that this is an interesting bill because it replaces us with, I think, the Board of Public Works as the deciding body on the registers of wills. So I'm going to support this bill. But again, it's an interesting piece of legislation. So I just think we should talk about it when we make these decisions to peg the salaries to other things. So we have the one that's coming over from the Senate that's pegging the local salary to the state's attorney, and this one pegs it to the Board of Public Works. But I'm going to support the legislation. Thank you.
Good. That's a good observation, and something we probably need to look at. Delegate Arakan.
So for my friend from Montgomery County's elucidation, what happened on the vote when the House bill was here was that I literally just want to just say for the record, I did not have a grasp of that fiscal note, and the brackets were extremely confusing. The way they expressed it, it looked to me like we would be saving money broadly by moving this bill, but in the end, it actually included massive salary increases. Again, as my friend had mentioned, like six-figure increases for some places. And so once this bill got to the floor, I was a no once I had understood what the fiscal note was trying to tell me in a very unusual manner that it was written in. So that's why we pulled it out today. And by we, I mean my friend from Baltimore County who also wants to say something.
Delegate Mangione.
Thank you. I was just going to give a mention to, other than one of the minority member of the minority party, we all did change our vote from this committee on the floor, just letting you know if you didn't see that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Delegate Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 2, line 1, line 2 actually, this is current law where the Board of Public Works sets the salary. So why is there a question about it now?
The question is, in this circumstance, and the question that Leader Moon had was that sometimes we base it on X here set by the Board of Public Works. Sometimes we set the salary, the General Assembly, and sometimes the county sets the salary. Mm-hmm. And so his point that he was making was that we might want to consider doing it one way across the board.
Yeah. Acknowledging that this is.
Yes. And so that's where he was with that. Delegate Cardin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I happen to agree. I actually asked the question, not knowing the answer to it, to the senator about who else does it with basing it on the state's attorney on the bill that we heard today. And the fact of the matter is that it seems like there are some piecemeal ways that we're doing this, and we're giving up our authority to designate salaries, which is something that we've always held sacred. Now, granted, the budget doesn't come from us, it comes from the counties, right? But I think that the clerks of the Register of Wills might not only come from the counties. You'll note in the fiscal note that the question that Delegate Taylor just asked, it is incumbent on the Board of Public Works to determine the annual salary of each clerk and the Register of Wills. However, we set a salary maximum, a ceiling here in the General Assembly. So it's $124,000 maximum. And I think what this bill is going to do is going to take that ceiling that we have created and take it away and basically let the Board of Public Works increase it as they see fit. It does take away our authority. It's interesting. I don't know whether we should give up our authority. I mean, this is one of the things that we do, right? We get, and the Judiciary Committee only gets Register of Wills, sheriffs, state's attorneys, that comes to us. But all the other ones go to other committees. And the question is, are we setting a precedent where other committees are going to be upset that they're not going to have the authority because they can turn to the General Assembly and say, we're doing this. And we're also doing it piecemeal where we're giving it to the Board of Public Works here, we're giving it to the state's attorneys there, we're giving it to different groups. Look, I'm not trying to, I guess I tend to throw a snowball in, but I just think that maybe we should retain at least some authority over these things. If we want to create, if we believe that we can manage fiscal stability and fiscal accountability, why are we then saying, you know what, but for the Register of Wills, And for the sheriffs and for other folks, we don't think we need to. So I've now stalled enough to bring all of the other people in, Madam Chair, so they can all vote. That was my job here.
Thank you. Good job. Good job.
What a winner.
So I see now I made a big mistake. I let you all know that we're not going back to the floor until 3 o'clock.
We have feelings.
Oh, man. Okay, I love this committee. All right, so I see a lot of lights, and so I'm going to call on a couple of folks, but I also want to state that in my humble opinion, this is an issue that we should address. However, I don't think we should address the issue piecemeal either. Okay, I think we should address it across the board. That's just my humble opinion. Delegate Simpson.
So just for clarification, clerks of the court and the Register of Wills are state employees. They do fall under, they get state retirement, be clear. Sheriff are county, and that, right. And so they are throughout, if you want to see the chart, because I actually, there are, I believe, 5 counties that are related to some part of the state's attorney. And usually those bills are like locally been asked, can you change our sheriff person? And they're the ones who pay for it. There are 7 counties that the law specifically says the county determines it. So, I mean, there could be a logic as to why from the very beginning, were they used to be all the sheriff's state? I don't know. But none of them are currently state. All of these folks that we're voting on right now are state employees. And it does make it so that we're not revisiting this each and every time. And just to be clear, we as a body did do an increase to state employees, I believe, 2 years ago, particularly to folks who weren't getting those step increases. And, so I think maybe that's where this is coming from, to make that change, and so that we're not revisiting it. And this does not give everybody the same no matter where they come. It's still the Board of Public Works based on the amount of work they do. It would be a portion of what that would be. Does that make sense? Or at least that's how I read it, unless somebody... That's the ceiling, but it's not saying everybody. So, that might be the ceiling for the city, which might have the largest, or Montgomery County that has the largest. But that's not what somebody at Wycomico or Worcester County is receiving, because it's also, if you notice in the bill, it's based on work. So it's still based on some form of what it currently is with the board. It just gives it, making that the cap rather than us keep changing the cap. So if the salary schedule changes and increases, theirs would increase, like other employees, when other employees would increase.
Right, so basically what this bill does is provide, as in the title, the cap. This is what it does. It provides a range. It does not say this is a little bit different from the previous bill we heard today. This provides a range of where a person could be paid with respect to the Register of Wills or the clerks. Delegate McComas.
I think what would be a good idea to do, and I don't know if the state's got the money, but I would think maybe we need to get some folks that are experts in the workload, because Maryland is America in miniature. The Eastern Shore, Western, they're different, and their workloads are probably going to be different. And I would think that, they're not all comparable, like Worcester County and Montgomery County. And I think that, and then we need to figure out, because we have the NCSL, okay, how do other states deal with this if they have something like we've got? But I think maybe, as Delegate Moon said, he's a smart guy, I acknowledge that. We probably need to have a system that is consistent, but also takes into the diversity of the state and the workload. And I think basically that's probably what we need to be doing, and putting it with an agency or with the county or wherever, where it goes to the county or the state or the Board of Public Works, that has the best ability to analyze the data and do the right thing and make the proper salary ranges for folks. And I don't know what that answer is, but I think that because of the fact that it is confusing, we need to kind of do a task force or a study or something. But I think that would be money well spent.
Okay. Keep in mind, I just text my Register of Wills because I do recall, Holly, I do recall that that the Register of Wills is, okay, hold on one second. Hold on one second. I do recall, and I just text my Register of Wills to confirm, that the Register of Wills is not only mostly self-funded, they actually end up bringing in, they go, they're able to fund themselves, and they're usually, they have a surplus, is what I'm getting at. So keep that in mind. This is a little bit different, hence the reason why I say if we're going to make the change, I think we should look at it comprehensively as opposed to piecemeal. I think that the point that the senator made on her bill with respect to the sheriffs, it applies here with respect to the Register of Wills and the clerks, and that is that the salary could only be changed in the 4-year period. After they're elected, they're not going to be, whoever's elected in this election will be affected by either what we do or what we don't do. I'm not saying that that's any reason. I just want to make sure we are clear on that. The other thing is that I think this is, the other thing is to keep in mind that the budget, this is and I know we're not a budget committee, but this budget is already allocated for in the budget for Judiciary. So keep that in mind as well. So I just want to make some clarifications on that. Delegate Cardin?
Very quickly, I just want to remind everybody, I just reminded this from this fiscal note, that while the $124,500 is a current ceiling, the Register of Wills are allowed to get a commission on the money they bring in of like $25,000. So they actually get, they have an incentive to try and bring in more money. They actually get that in their salary as a bonus.
Now, is that, I'm not trying to insult at all, but I want to make sure that's not just an AI overview, right?
No, I mean,
okay.
So here, according to the fiscal note, each Register of Wills of total fees and taxes collected and in excessive fees turned over to the state for each of the preceding 5 years by the Office of Register of Wills, for which the salary is being fixed, and the pertinent data for which they have relationship, blah, blah, blah. I can keep going. They can get up to 146. I'm just reading it out of the fiscal note. It's 124,500 is what the maximum is that we pay, and then they can get an additional up to 146,500, so an additional $22,000, the way I read it. So,
okay.
It's just, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. It gives them an incentive to bring in more money.
Right. No, I was only asking that because I just wanted to know the source. So we're good. Delegate Arakan?
I just want to make sure. So they had just gotten that 18% raise in 22 that took them to 124, from 124 to 146.5. But this ties it to the grade 26, step 20, which is 183,000. That's a yeah, it's the max. That's a pretty big jump. I think. And, I don't know. I'm not sure why we chose step 20. Maybe there was something below that that made a little more financial sense. But that's a pretty big jump, potential jump. So that's why a lot of us, once we actually, because that was not for some reason in the fiscal note, but in a number form. So I think that was how we got confused. If I don't know, it just seems like a big jump. I'm in the wrong industry, I think.
The vice chair.
So I agree that we need to have the policy discussion on whether we're going to give up our authority over these three agencies. And if passing this bill allows us to come back and have the policy discussion, that's fine. But if it does not, I've got an issue with it. That's because it's obvious that that there are enough questions that we need to have that discussion.
All righty. Are we going to raise the salaries or not? That's really my question now at this point, No. Is anybody, hold on. Is anybody interested in holding the bill? I should put it that way. Okay. Delegate Taylor?
I don't think that this automatically increases their salary. It just gives them the opportunity to make more. And I think if they're in Prince George's or Baltimore or some heavily populated area, then they're going to have more volume, which means their salary would be a little more than in other places. So I suspect that maybe in more heavily populated areas, they've already reached their max. They've already reached what was in current language, the 146,000. Their volume has increased, and because of statute, their salary cannot increase because they're capped. So now what we're saying is let's just tie it to, not just, but let's tie it to a state step and whatever it is, and have it so if over time, we never have to come back here again. If, the volume increases dramatically in some really populated city, then we don't have to come back to the General Assembly to ask for the increase in salary. So I think we should vote on it.
But it's a statement.
Delegate Simpson, thank you.
I would say that we are not giving away our authority, and I want to make that clear because it is based on a salary schedule, which is what we determine, our appropriations determines what that salary scale is and how that changes. So we are not giving that up. All we are saying is that, and that doesn't mean that we won't be coming back in 5 years, 10 years, and deciding maybe 26 isn't the right step or whatever. It just means that as state employees' salaries go up, these state employees who are elected salaries would also go up and not just remain fixed. That's what it basically boils down to. We're still probably going to have to come back, just like we go back and look at, we don't, but we do as a General Assembly. We don't look at the salary schedules in general, but they are determined by the Maryland General Assembly.
I got more questions now.
I'm going to call for the vote.
But
Hold on, Delegate McComas, did you finish? I want you to finish your sentence.
It is different depending on the workload, as it says, so that it actually still does kind of incorporate part of the old law of, saying the Public Works would determine this, but it also has this other thing that it would be automatic. If we increase the salaries of others, we increase their salary.
And I will say that I can say this, hopefully. I did reach out to a few folks who testified in support of this bill, and they confirmed what Delegate Simpson just said. Delegate McComas.
The only thing I would say is just so we're not setting precedent by going forward with this, just to make sure, get an AG opinion to say, hey, if you all come back next year or whatever and you want it changed or you want to study, you're okay to do it. In other words, you don't want to get locked in that we pass this and then then they can come and say, well, this is a precedent, whatever. You just want to be able to be flexible with the next legislature that comes in. That's my only suggestion.
Okay, so let me just, okay. Delegate Arakan?
Okay, so I wasn't really so much worried about the giving away our authority issue. I was mostly focused on what felt like a giant jump. But now that I think I understand what's going to happen, essentially we're telling the Board of Public Works, which is the governor, the comptroller, and the state treasurer, what the cap is, but then they get to decide which counties' courts get which pay. So we are really just giving from one political body to a different political body complete control over a job that we used to have some weigh in on.
It's current language that they have had that authority.
So they've always been the ones that have set this? It's never been us?
Existing law. Yeah, they already said it,
We just tell them where the caps are?
yes.
And now we're getting rid of the cap?
No, we're keeping the cap. There's still
Yeah,
a
but
cap.
we're getting rid of our authority over the cap. We're giving the cap authority to the system. We're saying, we're no longer as a legislative body going to weigh in on the cap. We are going to give an auto cap to this year, and we don't have to touch it ever again. Which there could be a policy reason for doing that, but to Delegate Moon's point from earlier, like, is that what we want to do as a body? Say, okay, we're no longer setting the caps anymore. We're giving it, this is the perma cap, and it's going to move, and we're checked out of the process. So if I don't have a really strong opinion on that piece of it, but I think it's worth acknowledging that that's what we're doing. We're getting rid of some of our power here.
Okay, so a couple of things I want to bring up. I want everybody to understand something. This bill passed out of the House chamber. The House bill passed out of the House chamber. It is over in the Senate. It is likely to pass over in the Senate. We do not have to pass the Senate crossfile if we do not feel comfortable. I would like to hold the bill while folks think about whether or not they are in the position and ready to pass, because I'm hearing a great deal of unrest. Before that, Delegate Phillips.
Madam Chair, since myself and my colleagues were out of the room, we just wanted procedurally if we could cast our votes for the consent calendar.
No. Okay, is there any objection to Delegates Phillips, Embry, Williams, Moreno casting their vote on the consent calendar?
Yes, I have an objection.
I have an objection too. So what is your vote, folks? Phillips, I'll let, please call the roll for those individuals, please.
Delegate Embry. Delegate Embry votes aye on the consent calendar. Delegate Phillips. Delegate Phillips votes aye on the consent calendar. Delegate Moreno. Aye. Delegate Moreno votes aye on the consent calendar. And Delegate Williams. Delegate Williams votes aye on the consent calendar.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.